Good morning, my fellow treasure hunters and explorers. The topic of today's video is when worlds collide. When Columbus came to the shores of the North American continent, he didn't discover a new world. He discovered a world that was already thousands of years old, with people from all over the continent, many different haplogroups, with many different types of DNA that is easily traceable to the continents that they came from. Even though scientists, anthropologists, and archaeologists have refused to do in-depth DNA studies, it's not because they're interested in finding something, it's because they will be able to prove what they really already know. And that will contradict the status quo, that will contradict the narrative that has been going on for hundreds of years. And this would totally rewrite history, and that's something they don't want to do. They just keep doubling down and going forward with their old weak narratives. As time goes on, more and more information is coming out about who these people were, where they came from, and how they got here. I do not believe that Columbus thought he was the discoverer of the New World. In fact, Columbus, who was Portuguese, was actually a member of the group, the Knights of Christ, who were an offshoot of the Knights Templars. I believe and have information that Columbus had information about some of these earlier voyages. He had information about what was here, what had transpired, and he was merely looking for fortune and glory, or to continue to further his own quest, or perhaps even a deeper search for some of those people that had gone before, some of the Templars that had gone on before. It might have been a search for some of these individuals or people. Later on, we hear about the Spanish and their explorations, and they were always looking for trees and plants and animals that they were familiar with. And they called this Castilian trees, Castilian animals, Castilian history. They were looking for these evidences of a civilization that they knew about that had come here years before, and they were trying to trace their origins or where they ended up. In fact, the legend of Cibola, I believe, was far older than Christopher Columbus or the Spanish. They already had this information. It was held close to the kings and to the leaders and to the elite, that they were here looking for something. And as we go through this video, I'm going to try to incorporate some of the things that they were looking for, some of the things that they found, and some of the things that eluded them. Some of the facts, though, that would be borne out by this video is that the Spanish coming to the shores of America, North America, South America, inevitably displaced millions of native peoples. They brought diseases and sicknesses and a way of life that was not healthy for the Native Americans that were here. And even though they mistreated them, they used them as slaves in their minds and in their missions, it was really the diseases and the way of life that poisoned the Native Americans and reduced their numbers by millions. It was not the treatment that inevitably destroyed and brought down the Native American tribes and indigenous peoples, but rather these other factors. Now, if we study the DNA of many of these groups and people, these Native Americans, we can find that they came from Asia, they came from the Iberian Peninsula, they came from Scotland and Denmark, they came from the Vikings, They came down in South America, and you can see that they came from the Aborigine DNA is down in Patagonia and some of the far-reaching tips of the South American continent. We have information and records about the Knights Templar coming here around the 1300s, 14th century, escaping the persecution that the French king and the leaders of Europe, who were heavily indebted to the Knights Templar, they declared them heretics and started making up false accusations against them and torturing them to confess to false things so that they could justify erasing the debt that they owed to the Templars for the wars and for the favors they were doing, for the security they were providing. And then they tried to steal their wealth. So it was a twofold thing, to get rid of their own debts to the Templars and then to steal the Templars' wealth. And of course they were able to take some of it, but much of the Templars' wealth eluded them. And it is my belief that it was hidden, whether in Portugal, in Scotland, and I believe some of it from from Jerusalem and other places ended up on the shores of Nova Scotia, British Columbia, or a little further south in what is now the United States of America. We have evidences of those things here. All across the United States we find petroglyphs in Native American sites that show various religious objects that are attributed to the children of Israel in Jerusalem. We have Egyptian items. We have items from India. We have items that are from the biblical record of the Ark of the Covenant. And as has been very well done with Scott Walter's America Unearthed, we find the hooked X, which was secretly held close to the Templars and to these groups that were following and believed that they knew where the bloodline of Jesus Christ was at. And so we find these things scattered across America. One of the things that has been, I believe, one of the reasons why we've had difficulty finding even more of these sites and these things is because the subsequent explorers that came here were all trying to erase any signs of European influence here so that they could make their own land claims as they went across and explored different areas. The Spanish put down their own land claims. The French put down their land claims, and they tried to erase the claims of each other. In several instances, I'm going to show that the Spanish put large claims in very remote and hard-to-reach places that were obscure. I believe these claims were put there to, if there was ever a question, they could go to the location, they could take these other people there, they could show the date, the time. I believe that information was recorded and hidden there along with these land claim markers. And so the evidences are all there, even though some of it is not known to very many people and has been erased and tried to be hidden. Anyway, as these worlds from the old world and the new world collided, it altered the course of history and created many different groups of people. One of the primary groups of people that I am interested in and that I feel is key to understanding at least the western and southern Native American groups is the Aztec. The Uto-Aztecan people, the Uto-Aztecan language can easily be traced across the desert southwest and down into Mexico. Also the plant species, the corn species, the squash, all these things can easily be traced, and they all come back to northern, central, southern Utah and the Four Corners region of Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. That is the origin of the Aztec. And it is my firm belief that the Aztec originated from the Uinta Basin, and that the ancient, what scientists and paleontologists have called the ancient Uinta Lake, was not really that ancient. It may go back to, it may have been drained out by the Colorado Plateau uplift as recently as 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. And I believe this is the origin of the Aztec ancient Lake Copala. The Uinta Lake, it's called Turtle Lake, where there's many turtle fossils, the place of whiteness referred to by the Aztec, where they had their civilization on the shores. They lived in the swamps, in the edge of the water, and they fished. They grew their gardens in their raised gardens, their pampas, and mined gold and silver and many different types of ores. I believe that came from the Uinta Mountains, from the area of the Kennecott copper mine. That mine was obviously mined long before the Spanish and the Europeans came into the area. When they came, they recognized and saw this giant area that had been open pit mined, and they realized that there was a lot of copper, gold, and silver and different elements that was there that had already been mined long before. And so this, I believe, was the origins of the Aztec Empire. And this is indeed, if you trace the Uto-Aztecan languages, this is the epicenter. If you trace the species of corn and squash and different plants, this is the epicenter. It's the Aztec have their own legends and records. The records of Tezozomoc and of Diego Duran, who was a Spanish-educated Aztec, who wrote records and kept records. They talk about these things. It's mentioned in there that the Aztec, when they left in humility. They left defeated, whether in battle or from disease or from the loss of their great homeland. I believe that it was of the time of great turmoil, of earthquakes, of volcanoes. Just to the north of there was the Yellowstone caldera, which was going off, and there is Colorado Plateau uplift. There were volcanic activities going off in southern Utah and northern Arizona. The Mount Trumbull area, out there at Toraweep and Napaweep, the area over near Flagstaff, the Sunset Crater, and some of those other areas over there were all going off at the same time. Sometime around this period of time, the giant meteorite struck at Meteor Crater east of Flagstaff. In fact, that may have been the event that triggered many of these other things. Can you imagine the impact of a meteor that large that created that large of a hole in the ground, the chain reactions that's within the earth and above the earth that would have been caused by that event? If you take a big bowl of Jello, or make a big mud pit in a little kid's swimming pool and get in fluid, to where it's like quicksand, and you punch your fist into there, it ripples through the entire substrate of that. Just like if you take Jello and you hit it with your spoon and the whole bowl of Jello wiggles. That's what happens to the earth when you have a giant meteor strike the earth. It could have cracked the mantle, it could have cracked sent a force through the earth that cracked an area near the Colorado River Plateau and started or enhanced that uplift. As it raised up, Lake Copala drained. All the fish and the turtles and all the animals that the Aztec relied upon for life drained out. And I'm sure because of the volcanoes and the other activities that are going off around that same time, the Aztec left in fear. They left in humility. They left a lot of things behind. I believe that the subsequent activity of volcanic volcanism and of the uplifting activities, the debris, the mountains sliding down, different things like that have totally erased much of the evidence of those civilizations. We have a few interesting panels of petroglyphs and pictographs, and we have some artifacts that are found from time to time that leave us with more questions than answers. But most of all, we have the Aztecs' own history. We have the things that the Spanish were able to find out from them through torture, through manipulation. Initially, the Aztecs were very enthralled with the Spanish. They thought they were the returning great white god. The Moctezuma and his priests thought it was a return of that serpent, the great white serpent called Quetzalcoatl, who had visited the Aztec according to their record at one time, who had taught them his ways, had ascended into heaven and left, and then had told them at some point he was going to return. And so they obviously were fooled by this event of the Spanish coming in this great ship. That's something that they were unfamiliar with. And they had an unfamiliar dress, they had steel, and they had horses. And they were very impressed with the Spanish and thought they were some form of god. And so the Aztec thought that Cortez was the return of Quetzalcoatl, and they initially welcomed them with open arms and treated them like kings and gods. They found out in short order that they were really only greedy, looking for gold and silver and fortune and glory. And so then things turned against the Spanish. They had battles with the Aztec. They pushed back and forth. Eventually they pushed the Spanish out for a period of time. And then the Spanish tried to steal their wealth, and when they went back to take it, a lot of it was missing. A lot of the important things, their records, a lot of their religious items had disappeared. And that's where I'm sure the Spanish caught and tortured some of the Aztecs, and I'm sure that's where the legend where the Aztec returned to their homeland emerged from, that they had taken their gold, their silver, their religious items, their records, and taken it back and hidden them somewhere in a cave in the homeland, in the areas that they were familiar with and had lived prior to their settlement in Mexico City in Lake Texcoco. And so I do not believe that the Aztec went all the way back to the Uinta Basin to hide their treasure. For one thing, if Lake Kapala had been drained by the Colorado Plateau uplift, that entire region would have been changed physically. And it took the Aztec a number of years, hundreds of years, before they ended up into Mexico. So they spent a lot of time in the lands between the Uinta Basin and northern Utah and where they ended up in Mexico. That's a huge area, that area between Mexico and the Uinta Basin. You've got Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, you've got parts of Texas, you've got Texas, and those are some of the biggest states in North America, in the United States. But we do have some evidences, and I believe that the area that the Aztecs spent a lot of their time after they left the Uinta Basin in northern Utah was the area of southern Utah, northern Arizona, and northern New Mexico, and southern Colorado. And I believe that's where they were able to live. It's between the areas of intense destruction of that volcanic activity, and there was the Colorado River was there, the Green River was there. You had many other lakes and rivers of those regions. And you have the evidences of the corn and of the Uto-Aztecan speaking people, the Utes, the Gosh-Utes, the Paiutes. You have the Wallapai, the Havasupai. You have all those groups and people that speak that Uto-Aztecan language that still live in those areas today. They're small splinter groups, obviously, but they're still there and exist as a nation. And they have their own records and their own histories. And most people have not studied it or delved into that information deep enough to really know what those histories are. But if you talk to and have a conversation, a friendly conversation with some of their elders, you will find that they have a record of the people. They call them the people. The Navajos also call these people the people. The Navajo call them the Daini. But they have a record of these people and of them coming. And they also say, if you talk to the Utes or the Paiutes, particularly the Paiutes in the Havasupai, they say that their people brought back a great treasure, which they don't call treasure, they call their history, their important things, and hid them. And they say they are the watchers and keepers of these things. Later we have the record of Freddie Crystal showing up in Kanab looking for a cave. And after years of search and research, he found that cave out there in Cottonwood Canyon, east of Kanab, that met all the information and criteria that he had, and he was very excited. And basically the whole town of Kanab showed up and helped him try to excavate these huge caves with many chambers and tunnels. And they never got to the end of them, and they never found anything in there. Whether they were a diversion or whether they just didn't find the right chamber. But it is a fact that those caves were man-made and that they were there sealed up. We've also got the story of the 3 lakes in the Kanab area, which has never been resolved. And so many strange and unusual things have happened as they've attempted to get into those caves that it defies common sense, it defies all logic. There has to be some unseen supernatural force protecting those caves, or they would have gotten into them long ago. The Childs family, who owned that area, drilled into one of them and got gold on their drill bit. And then shortly thereafter, the driller died. The original, the man that owned that, Brett Childs, he had an encounter with a Native American priest or warrior that convinced him that he should quit the search, that he was messing with something supernatural or something that was protected for these people for a distant time when they would come back for it. And we also have some of the other events that have happened in the area with the Spanish. I've made some of my own discoveries in the area. I think one of the most important discoveries that has been made and was recognized by my friend and colleague Dan Lowe was the clamshell map that most people that have seen that site do not recognize how amazing and how important and what that site is. That is literally the Aztecs' record of their important places and of where they hid their treasures. I know it from the bottom of my heart. When I saw that map and studied that map and recognized some of the Aztec symbols, some of the Aztec signs, some of the things that I've seen in other areas, the navigation glyphs, the key glyphs, some people call them water glyphs that are on that map, the sunbursts, which, as we know, the Aztec recognized the sun as gold. They recognized gold as the defecation, the crap that comes from gods. I mean, is archaic and strange as that seems. That's where the term "holy shit" came from the Aztecs and some of these other tribes, the Utes. They recognize, they have to this day they have ceremonies, the sun ceremony, where they use a small portion of gold to recognize this gift from the gods to humans. And a lot of this history has been hidden and is not known, but it's there for those that search. Anyway, I believe that the bulk of the Aztec treasure was brought back to the Utah, Arizona, the southern Utah, northern Arizona region, near the Grand Canyon, the Four Corners, and it was hidden in caves, it was hidden in water traps, and some of the artifacts and evidences have been found. I give some credibility to the Dan Dillman and his family, his father and his grandfather that came into the area, and some of the things that they've found. I believe there are some things that they found that they haven't talked about, and but they have a very interesting piece of property that has some evidences of the Aztec and of these people. We need to realize that they weren't called the Aztec. They were called the people. They had a different name for themselves when they were in this region, and later when they went to Mexico, they became known as the Azteca. We also know that during this period of time that the Aztec were in there wandering and looking for a new homeland, that many great events happened in the heavens and in the earth. The Navajos, the Hopis, many other groups of people, they talk about a time when they were living in the earth, when they had to go into caves and into protective places to survive because of the forces of nature, whether it was the volcanic activity, the dust, whether it was from protection from meteorite showers, or all these things would have also created great turmoil among the different groups and tribes of people trying to survive. There would have been a lot of raiding and pilfering and battles going on. And so all these people were seeking shelters in caves and in holes in the ground to protect themselves from the elements. And that's where the emergent story of the Navajo and the emergent story of the Hopi, the Simpapu, originated, is when these people finally came back out after so many days, weeks, or months and years hiding underground. They called this in their histories the emergence. And different time periods were different eras, and because they didn't keep a written record, it's all passed down from word of mouth. And so how many generations before things start to slip a little bit, or some of the information is gone and clouded? And then they had their own battles with the Spanish, and then later with the English, and with the pioneers and the cowboys, and they were impacted by diseases and by famine. The U.S. government eventually took these groups of people to Fort Sumner, and their Navajos had their own Trail of Tears, lost thousands of people. Their peach orchards were cut down, their crops were destroyed as they tried to bring them into subjugation. And so these individual people have lost a lot of their history and of their identity, and they're just slowly starting to get some of that back. And so when the Spanish came, they started a chain reaction of events that's continued. The Spanish from the south and the going west, and the English and the Europeans from the east coast coming to the west. And so they kind of pinched the Native Americans and pushed them out of their homelands, destroyed the buffalo. In their mining and in their hunting and in their search for wealth. And that's just what happens as worlds and different nations collide, these forces. And so that was a very, and because these tribes were so broken and destroyed, and they battled with each other for land and for resources, and they didn't have good records, or the records that they had at one time, their origins and where they were has been lost. But slowly some of this knowledge, some of this information is coming back out. And some of these records are being found. The birch bark scrolls from some of the Plains tribes is slowly being known. And some of these other groups are saying they have records from Central North America all the way down to South America. They're slowly coming forth with some of this records and this information. If you're a Christian, you believe and know what the Bible teaches is that there's a point in a time when all things that have happened on the face of the earth are going to be revealed. And we can see with the advent of the internet, with the advent of all the technology that's coming out, that information cannot be hidden from the masses anymore. It's being brought out. And for the good or for bad, AI is even bringing out more of that information, and we're learning and understanding more about these ancient records and peoples. And even I believe in the future we're going to unlock the petroglyphs in the pictographs. That language is going to be unlocked by AI and by the groups themselves. So anyway, it's an exciting time. It's a tumultuous time right now. We're still doing many adventures and trips. We're getting ready to go on a trip to northern Utah to some of our stomping grounds. We're going to stop at many locations along the way, hopefully get some great video and some great explore some great video, some drone video, and take you along on some of these trips that we've been trying to resolve. Some old mines that we're looking for, some mysterious caves. We're going to do some metal detecting. We're going to test out and show you some of our new technology. We've got a new deep-seeking metal detector that's super powerful. We've got some thermal imaging cameras we've had for a while now, but we're continuing to employ. A friend of ours has got drone-mounted LiDAR. We've got GPR and many new technologies that's really going to help us unlock some of these mysteries and help us to find some of these things we've been looking for. So stay tuned in the days and weeks ahead. Take care and have a great day.